Alright, hey everybody. In this series of tutorials, we are going to learn all about the application Kerbal Space Program. And we are going to be doing 3 separate tutorials, one tracking each of the NASA missions that led up to landing on the moon. So this one will be the Mercury one, where we will learn how to launch a craft into space and bring it back down. Then we will learn how to actually get into orbit. The next tutorial will be the Gemini one, where we will build a bigger rocket and we will go on a little spacewalk, and then we will have 2 ships blast off, rendezvous with each other in space, and then dock. And then finally we will get to Apollo, where we will go all the way to the moon, orbit it, come back, and then finally get our lunar lander on our ship, go to the moon, land that guy, and then come back as conquering heroes of the planet Kerbin. So we'll be doing this in Sandbox Mode, which it gives you everything all at the beginning, but it can be a bit daunting when you first start with it because you have a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily fit all together. So it is a fun way of doing it, so I hope to make a little bit of sense with this. So I'm in the main start page right now, and I'm just going to start my game. And I'm going to start a new game. And you can name it whatever you want. I'll call it Kevin. That's me. You can change your flag if you want. And that looks nice. And finally, we don't want to do it in career. That's it's also an excellent option, but just not the scope of this tutorial. And science is another one too, but we are going to be doing sandbox, normal difficulty, and let's get going. And a game with that name already exists, and I'll just overwrite it. That's fine. And you will come to a little message from Gene Kerman here, and thanks Gene, I got it. And this is our main area that we will be conducting all of our missions from. We have our launch pad right here. We have the tracking station, where if we have multiple crafts, we can go back here and kind of go between them and see which ones we want to control. We have our vehicle assembly building, which is where we'll build all of our rockets. And these are the 3 main ones that we will be using. Research and development is used for researching technologies when you're in career and science mode. We will not be using that. The astronaut complex is where you can train your astronauts and get new ones. I do not believe we will be using that. Spaceplane hangar, you can also mess around with making planes that can go off of this runway, which is a lot of fun to do, but we are not going to be doing that in this tutorial. And finally, we have mission control, which we will also not be using in sandbox mode. So let's go about and actually making our first rocket, and let's get into space. So click into here, I get a little message from Vamer von Kerman, I believe that's how you say it, and just got it. And this is the main area where we will be building. So I'm just going to name this one Mercury 1, because this is the first one of our Mercury program, and this will be roughly similar to the flight that Alan Shepard took to become the first NASA astronaut to reach space. And this rocket's not going to be like exactly the same or anything, so you know it's just a similar guide that we can follow to make sense of everything. So the first thing that we need is this MK1 command pod, and this is where we'll keep all of our people. So we need to put them somewhere, and it will be controlled from there. And in order to get it, just click on it and it'll be right there. If you click on it, you could move it all around. Now, this thing is going to go up, and then it is going to come back down. And when it goes up into space and then comes back down at great speed, it's going to hit that air. And just like rubbing your hands together creates friction and heat, this is going to create heat from hitting that air, and it's going to be hot. And we need some protection for our little Kerbals in there. So we need to go to aerodynamics, next page, and we have 3 heat shields, 1.25, 3.75, and 2.5. We want the smallest one. So I just click on that, And we have those little green balls, and I can just snap it into place right there. And I can still move them around with both of them. Now, this is going to go up, and it's going to come back down. But we also have like rockets that are going to be attached to it. And if we come down with those rockets, it's not going to be good. All that friction from the air is going to cause havoc on them, and it might not let us survive. So we want to have something that will blow those rockets off so that when we come back down, it's just this. So we need to go to structural, and then we want a decoupler, this TR18A stack decoupler. And if I clamp that on there, there's a small explosive device that will cause all the other tanks to go away. So we have this first part of it, and now we need an engine. But before we put the engine there, we need some fuel for that engine, because if the engine doesn't have fuel, it's not going to run. So if I go up to fuel tanks, we have a lot of different fuel tanks. We're going to choose a couple of these. Let's just throw that on there. And if I press Alt or Option, click on it, it will double it like that. Now I just need an engine to take all of that fuel and propel me into space. So, not a pod. So I'm going to go down here, and we have a couple of engines that will fit right here. We have this swivel liquid fuel engine. We also have this Reliant liquid fuel engine. And if you look where it says max thrust ASL and max thrust VAC, that's max thrust at sea level and our max thrust in a vacuum. So this one has 200.667 thrust at sea level and 215 in a vacuum. If we look over here, this is 168 at sea level and 200 in a vacuum. So I think we'll go with the more powerful one. And just throw that on there. And now we want a little stability going up, so I'm just going to attach some fins. And if I go to aerodynamics, I can just get my basic fin. And if I go here, like, I just don't want one fin on there. That would be weird. But then if I try to click it and then do another one, like, I don't know if that's going to line up. So, what I could do is if I press X, if you look down here, this will go into symmetry mode. So now if I press X, and you could also use your arrows to move around the camera, and your zoom ball on your mouse to go up and down. And if you press Shift, in, out, with the little trackball on your mouse. And I could see that I now have 2. And if I press X again, now I have 3. X one more time, I have 4. And I'm going to stick with 4. Cool. Okay, now we're almost done with our rocket. Zoom out by pressing Shift and the little trackball. Now this rocket is going to go up. It's going to eat all the fuel. It's going to eventually run out of fuel. Then we will light this decoupler, which will throw the rocket back down into the Earth, leaving only this there with our astronaut and our heat shield. It will come back down. However, we have a big problem, and that's that it's not going to slow down, and it's just going to be coming all the way from way up in space and just crash right in the Kerbal, and our Kerbals will not like that. So I need to add a parachute to it. If I go to utility, go to the next page, and I can do this little MK16 parachute, and that will just be a nice little parachute on top. Now, I've seen many people like accidentally deploy their chutes in space like before they actually do it. It's pretty simple to accidentally do that. And so what I like to do is just have a backup set too. So we can go to these we have MK1 radial, we have smaller ones. Yeah, these will work fine. All right, so I'm going to go to these, and these are just going to go on the side. I don't need 4 of them. It's a bit excessive. So I'm just going to go 2, and right there. And now, if this accidentally gets deployed or something, I have these to work with. So what's going to happen is this rocket's going to fire. It's going to run out of fuel. We're going to decouple. We're going to wait until we're at a nice altitude. Then we are going to fire the chute, and we also have this backup one just in case. That's 4 separate things. And we control those 4 separate things by these stages down here. So right now, I have my rocket being the first one. You can see if I hover over it, it turns green. And the first one is the one that starts from the bottom. Like, it's not numerically sequential. So it's not like, oh, 0 is first and then 1 second. No, it's the bottom one is first. And then we have all of this stuff going off at the same time. So in our next stage, it would decouple, and all 3 of our chutes would deploy, which is clearly not what we want. So I want to press this little plus button to create another stage, and I want to drag my decoupler down there. So now the engines fire, then it decouples, and then we have one stage with both chutes deploying. We don't want that. I'm going to go down here, and then that will go into there. And with that, with all my stages set, I am ready to launch. I am just going to save this, and then I am going to go launch. Okay, couple controls before we get started. This right here is our nav ball. This controls the direction. This is our throttle. If I press shift, sends the throttle up a bit. Control sends the throttle down a bit. Z goes all the way up. X goes all the way down. I'll let my throttle be like this. Stability assistance right here. This will help you control the craft. You definitely want to put this on. So have T for stability assistance. It will be very difficult to do anything if you do not have this on. And we have little Jebediah Kerman right there. He is in the launch pad, ready to go. And spacebar will cycle through the stages. So with the first stage, I am ready to go. So I'm going to press spacebar, and there we go. And you could see my speed right here is increasing. We always want that speed increasing. So if I were to press shift, it will go up a little quicker. Control will go down a little more, but not that much. Up here is our altitude. Right now we are at 1.5 kilometers, or now we're at 2,000 meters, and this will keep on going up. If you press M, you can get into map view, and you could use your arrows to control it, and then also the little ball thing on your mouse will go in and out. This right here is our apoapse. The apoapse is the high point of your flight. So because we keep on burning our rockets, it keeps on going up. And we need to get up to 70,000 meters in order to be into space. So I'm going to press M to go back. And I'm just going to use WASD, those keys, to turn a little bit. You can see right here. Going out. And you can see right here we have yaw, roll, and pitch. If you ever get to a point where yaw is like way over here and you're turning this way, you want to stop turning, because that's the autopilot really trying to correct going the other way and trying to fight you doing that. So you don't want that. You see my fuel is starting to run down. That's how much fuel I have. And when it is done, we're going to decouple the rocket, let it go, and then just fly up to top there. And there we go. I just press spacebar now. There we go. That will fall back to Earth. And I'm going to go over to my map, zoom out. And you can see because I turned a little bit, we're going to fall into the water, which is nice. When we do an orbit later, we are going to need to turn a lot more that way because we need to actually turn with the Earth. See, my apoapse is 149,000 meters, which is well into space at 70,000 meters. Go back here, and now we are officially in space because we hit 70,000 meters. Jebediah Kerman is our first Kerbal to ever get to that point. However, we still need to bring him back alive. And it's going to take a little while to get up to that level. Basically, you can see my speed dropping right now. It's just like throwing a ball up in the air and coming back down. It's pretty simple. You just had a lot of force here, hits the apoapse, comes back down. However, this can get a bit tedious waiting for all this. So we could time warp. If you click that, that will double the time. Why did that go to 5? Alright, and just go back to normal. You could also, if you press comma and period, that will do it, and that's a more convenient way of doing it. So go up, now we're coming back down, and it goes back to normal time once we have hit the Earth's atmosphere, or Kerbin's atmosphere. I'm going to zoom up a little bit more. And once we hit the denser air, you can see the atmospheric pressure right here. This is a total vacuum. This is at sea level. And now that we're hitting that, you can see all that friction is causing a lot of heat. And Jebediah Kerman is very fortunate that we put that heat shield in. Slow down a bit. And we need to wait until we're at about 270 meters a second before we deploy our chutes. Or else they will burn up, and that won't be good for Jebediah. Okay, it's now safe to deploy my chute. I'll just let it fall a little bit more just so we're not waiting too long to have it come down. All right, that's good. Deploy. And this will slow down. Slow down a lot now. There we go. And Jebediah Kerman is floating at a safe speed towards the ground. And this could take a little while, so I'm going to time warp again. Boom, and we have landed in the ocean. Good job, Jebediah. All right, I'm just going to go up here, and I want to recover that vessel. Cool. Jebediah is ready for his next assignment. Now, that was good. We went up, we went down, but now it's ready to really actually do something impressive. We want to orbit Kerbin, which is going to involve going up with more power and then turning and going so quickly laterally that we just kind of miss falling back to Kerbin. And we could orbit Kerbin forever once we get up there. All right, so I'm going to go. I need to build a bigger rocket for this. So I am going to add, let's add 2 more fuel tanks. Let's rename this one to Mercury 2. And this time I want a smaller rocket to control myself once I'm in space. So I am going to go back to engines. And for these, we use these powerful ones, but for the one in space, we're going to use this one, which you can see, like, it's only 60 max thrust in a vacuum, which, you know, it's not very powerful. But the good one about this is that it's more efficient, so it'll use that fuel that we have for a longer amount of time. So I'm just going to throw that in there. And then I also, if I have an engine there, I can't just burn it with the fuel tanks attached. I need to add another decoupler. So we go to structure. Get my decoupler. Oops, missed it. Cool. Okay, now this is going to be much more powerful than the rocket that we had before, but I'm still not quite sure of its power to get into space. So I want to get rid of these fins, and I'm going to add booster rockets. And the booster rockets will go on the side, and they will be our first stage. We'll have 4 of them on the outside, and they will fire first, get us up quickly, and then we can come in with this rocket. So we're going to have 3 stages of rockets. So I need, now I don't want, like, once I'm done with that fuel, I want to decouple them, but the stack decoupler is like, that's not going to work if they're on the side. So I need one that can go on here. I need a radial decoupler. You can see this one right here. It's a radial decoupler, and we're going to use 4 of them. So we need to go into symmetry mode. Just put those right there. And I'll add a fuel tank. Alright. And then let's add 4 engines. Cool. Alright. Now, we might be in space for a little while. So you could run out of electricity in space. And that becomes a big problem, because if you don't have electricity, you can't steer your capsule. And we would just be floating around in space forever, and we definitely don't want to do that. So you can go to, there's a utility, and get these solar panels. And we just put 4 right there, and that should be good. Okay, is this ready to launch? Yeah, I think we're good. Oh, no, we need to obviously take care of our staging, or else things could go wrong. So first, you can see it highlights in green again. We have those 4 booster rockets going first. Perfect. Then we have those 4 radial decouplers. Then we have a decoupler. We definitely don't want that. We want a rocket firing after that. So we want this bottom rocket. Let's move it down to here. Switch their places. We need another one. Okay. So now we have those radial decouplers. Then we have the rocket. Then that stack decoupler. Then our smaller rocket. Then the decoupler for the capsule. Primary chute. Backup chute. That is ready to go. Let's go launch. So we're ready to go. I'm going to turn on my stability assistance, and throttle looks good. Let's press space. There we go. That went off a little quick. I'm going to slow down a bit. And we are blasting off So we are going to keep on going up. Hopefully you can see like this is burning right here at a much greater speed than what they were before because there's less tanks. Hopefully they can get us up to about 10,000 meters, and then we'll deploy our other engine, start turning, and that should take us up into space. We'll get an apoapse of about, let's say, 105,000 meters. I'm going to slow this down a little bit. Okay, there we go. Spacebar, space again. And you can see like this speed is decreasing. We don't want that. So I'm going to throttle up a bit. And now it is back to increasing the speed. Alright, we're at about 13,000 meters. And I'm going to start to gently push it to 90 degrees. I'm going to watch my yaw. See how the yaw is moving back that way? Yeah, there we go. And it will become easier to steer once you have less air around you, once the atmosphere is thinner. Yeah, all right. Now the atmosphere is getting thinner, so this can be easier. But if you tumble your rocket, and don't worry, it happens to everyone. Cool. Alright, I'm about 90 degrees now. I'm going to go into my map view, and if you press down here, you can see this just to make sure that your nav ball, just to make sure everything is good. Check out my apoapse. It's slowly going up. I'll get that to about 105,000. And I could zoom it, and you can see like it's already going way out. Zoom out a little there. See how that looks, see how my fuel's doing. And this should, we're almost there. You can see, yeah, this is going way out. This should be a pretty good one. And if this just stops for you, that's because you ran out of fuel. So always make sure you're checking that. And now get that a little bit more. Cool, I can press X. And now I am going to go in this direction. Obviously, this is still not in orbit, but once we get to our apoapse, we could burn a little bit more. And now to make this easier, we are going to add a maneuver. So if you click on the apoapse, you could add maneuver. And this just basically, like you could tell the program what kind of orbit you want, where you want to go, and they will say, hey, go to this spot right here, burn for this amount of time, and you should have roughly that path that you want to go on. So right here we have our retrograde and our prograde. This is quicker, this is slower. So we want to go quicker, which will make our orbit bigger. If I drag it out like that, you can see that arc expanding. Keep on doing it, and then we will see a parallax form right there. The parallax is the low point of our flight. The apoapse is the high. It's just the opposite of the apoapse. Okay, and good. So now we have a parallax of 103,000 in our simulation here, and then the apoapse is 126,000. And you need your parallax to be at least above 70,000, because if the parallax is, let's say 50,000, it will start to hit that atmosphere and it will slow it down, and then you'll eventually come out of orbit. If we have a parallax above the atmosphere and an apoapse obviously still above the atmosphere, then it will stay in this orbit forever. Now if you click here, this will automatically go to the maneuver node. And you can see right here, if we burn in this direction for 41 seconds, it will change our velocity by 1,310 meters a second. And that should be good enough to get us into this orbit. So let's start doing that now. See this, and this will run out pretty quickly. Okay, that's gone. Spacebar, space, and now the smaller one is going. And as you are burning that way, you will see that as this goes down, this blue one will get more similar to the yellow dotted one. This will estimate for us. And it might not be exact, but it should be good enough to get us into orbit. Going. Again, it is falling, but it's just we're going so quickly that it's just kind of missing that Earth a little bit. All right, we should form a parallapse pretty soon. Where is it? Forming. There we go. Okay, and this will get up there. Cool, we are in orbit. I'm gonna press X. And it's not exactly the same as that, but that's fine. So I'm just gonna close out my maneuver node. You can see my parallapse is 89,000, which is all right, and the apoapse is 261,000. So this is in orbit. This will work. However, like, it's really not circular. Like, I want a nice circular orbit so that it's really efficient. And as we move on to like more advanced stuff, you are going to need to be able to change your orbit. So I mentioned prograde and retrograde before. We can move prograde, which this is if we were to fire the rockets now, this will make us go quicker. Retrograde is the opposite. You can see if we go to the ship, see how it's turning around now? Now it's burning in the opposite direction. So if we were to burn this way, it would slow us down. So what we're going to do when we get to our parallapse at the bottom, at the low point of our orbit, if we burn retrograde, that will cause our apoapse to come down because it doesn't have as much force to get out that high. It's being dragged by Earth more. So it's going to come at a lower point into that apoapse. And then it won't affect the parallapse at all because we're already down there. And then the apoapse up here, the same thing will happen. Like if we burn prograde, it will make our parallapse bigger. And it will, if we burn retrograde, it will make the parallapse smaller. So let's just warp a little bit. Let's get to parallapse. There we go. And now I'm going to press shift. And you can see that come down. And the parallapse is constant. So let's get this to about 100,000 meters. Sure, that's constant. Cool. All right, and as like the apoapse gets closer to the parallapse, they're going to start to move and be different. So get a little bit more there. Watch out for that. Cool. All right, now this is at about 100,000, and I want to get my parallapse to be at about 100,000 too, so that we have a nice circular orbit. So I'm going to advance to there. There we go. And also, like, probably a good point too, check that you have enough fuel to do this. Like, this isn't strictly necessary, and if you run out of fuel trying to do this, you can't get out of orbit, and your Kerbal will be floating there like forever, and we don't want that. So I have my apoapse there, and I want to make my parallapse bigger. So this time I'm going to burn prograde. I'm going to go quicker, so that it goes quicker and quicker and quicker and expands that orbit. So check my parallapse. Apoapse, parallapse start to move around a bit. Cool. All right, 100,000, 100,000. We have a nice circular orbit. And if you go up here, you can see your electric charge. If we hadn't put those solar panels in, it would be much, much lower than this right now. So we can pretty much, because you don't need to worry about like supplies or food or anything, if you were to zoom around, you could pretty much orbit in this path forever. See a nice little sunrise. And we are just orbiting and orbiting and orbiting. Fun, fun, fun. Jebediah Kerman is certainly having a good time here. Alright. So So go back here, and that's great, but I think it's time to get back to Kerbin. We're getting a little homesick. So when we come back, we want to try to do it during the day so that we can see where we're going, and we want to do it into water so that like there's not some unexpected mountains that come and like mess up our altitude and cause bad things to happen. So let's find a nice little spot in the ocean here. Here we go. We got a lot of ocean to work with. Go back to normal. And what we're going to do is we are just going to burn retrograde. That will slow us down. And we're not missing falling into the Earth anymore. Or we're not missing the Earth anymore. And we don't have the force to keep us in orbit. We just slow down and fall back to Earth. So I am in retrograde. I'm just going to burn. And you can see my parallax is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller until it just disappears. And then the point that we land is going to get closer and closer and closer until we get it into the ocean. And there it is. And also, like, the friction of the air is going to affect us a little bit, so this won't land exactly there. It will land a little bit before, because this assumes no air, and there is air. Alright, that looks like a pretty good place to stop, so I'm going to press X. And now I should land in that ocean there. And I have no need for my engine anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it. And I'm going to go on back to my stability assist. Point upwards. And I am just going to speed up, because my camera's in a different way. Speed up again. Further. And there we go. Start to hit the air. And because we're not going like straight up and straight down, we're going kind of sideways into Kerbin. You're gonna find that your speed, like you reach 270 much quicker, or like much higher than you did when you just went straight up and straight down, because we're kind of going at an angle. See, we're at a good point right now, but we're still at 7,000 meters. So I'm just gonna keep on letting it fall, because it just takes too long if we deploy it there. Like, it would work, everything would be fine, but it's just, I don't want to wait that long. And I'll wait till about 2,000. There we go. Cool. Deploy the chutes. That slows down. Speed up. Do a little time warp. And there we go. Jebediah Kerbin, not only is he the first Kerbin in space, but he has also become the first Kerbal to orbit Kerbin successfully and come back. And he's giving us a nice little wave. I'm going to slow time down here, and I'm going to recover our vessel. And that is it for our Mercury project tutorial there. For the next one, we are going to do our Gemini 1. And that we'll make a bigger rocket, and we will rendezvous and dock at space, go on a little space flight, and should be fun. So come back for that one, and hopefully you're successful here, and thanks for watching. Later.